Welcome back to the Nano Cruising Podcast. I'm your host, Stefan Marceau. Today we continue our discussion with small boat designer Michael Storer. In this episode, you'll find out about his various designs and their intended uses, some of his philosophies for small boat cruising, and a lot more. So you got into the canoe. I guess you've created different canoe plans for different needs. Is that what you start to do?
Well, the Beth canoe was really just for me, and then the first boat I designed after that was the Goat Island skiff. Then the handy punt and a windsurfer, plywood windsurfer. That used moth-type construction methods to be lighter than the carbon fiber windsurfers of the day. But instead of costing $4,000, as the latest Mistrals did at that time, it cost $400. Like, that's a really important element of what I do too. But by keeping the power of technology, real technology, in people's hands, and using simple materials in a technologically clever way, that we can build something that is actually very, very sophisticated just by taking care of details with each aspect of the building, which is where plans come in, and the idea of that encapsulated knowledge about what makes boats go fast is built into the plan. So if someone buys a Beth plan or a Goat Island skiff plan or a Viola canoe plan or an Oz Goose plan, the ultimate boxy boat, and it's actually a very sophisticated plan that people can follow each step, do the steps each simple step one by one, and they actually end up with a boat with a really effective rig that depowers in the gusts, repowers when the gust ends. They've got good foils, centerboard and rudder blade, which are at least as important as the sails for making a boat go. And they've got a nice lightweight hull that drives easily and also is easy to take care of because it's light.
The Osgos is a bit an evolution, I guess, from the puddle duck, I guess, that everybody got into maybe 10 years ago, right? Is that what it comes?
I think it might be closer to 15.
15,
Shorty Rouse.
Yeah, you're right.
Shorty Rouse kicked off the puddle duck and made something really, really great out of it. And then the Goose was meant to be a fun boat that would that could take a family out sailing, and still use the Oz Racer, the original 8-foot boat. So it could use the rig and the foils from that other boat, from the smaller type of boat. So people could build another boat, another hull, and take the family out. But then, just coming up to Sail, Oklahoma, which I think is defunct now, but it was a great meeting of designers and enthusiasts on Lake. Can you remember the name of the lake?
I don't remember. I've read about it. I've never participated, but I remember.
I was just trying to remember the name of the lake. So anyway, one year I was invited to the USA by Chuck of Duckworks. Who owned Duckworks at that time.
Yes.
And part of the tour was to go to Sail, Oklahoma, and the designers conference. But coming up to that, I'd been speaking to someone who'd built a goose, Ian Henahan, and he's a pilot, and he had a really good GPS on the boat, and he kept quoting to me these speeds that just seemed ridiculous. So I'm saying, how much wind do you think there is, right? And the guy's an aerobatic pilot, right? So when he says there's 7 or 8 knots of wind, he means there's 7 or 8 knots of wind. And when he's reading off his GPS and saying, like the boat's going 6 knots, or that the wind is 10 knots and the boat's doing 7.5 knots, I'm going, what? There's no way that GPS could be wrong.
Yeah, they go fast.
Yeah. So, and then I had the chance to meet him at the Sail Oklahoma not long after.
Right.
And yeah, it was really obvious that the boat had so much more go than the 8-foot version. Like the 8-foot version, even though we put the 89 square foot lug rig or the 82 square foot leg of mutton sails on it.
It's still a lot of sail for that size of boat.
Yeah, like typically you'd expect to see 45, 50 square feet, and here we are almost doubling it.
That's
and
right.
that was done as a joke. And then we find that the hull shape, that boxy hull with no curve on the sides at all and no flare, is so stable that it handles the sail area really well, even the 8-foot boat. And then when it's put on the 12-foot boat, instead of sort of being stuck at 5 knots and a bit of a gust, and the smaller boat will go up to 7 knots, and then the wind will drop slightly, and it'll just go straight down to 4.5 knots again, where it's happy. Like it's always struggling to get down to 4.5 knots, and with that big sail, it'll do 4.5 knots in most wind strengths, but it doesn't like going much faster. But to jump into a goose, it was actually exciting sailing. Like you're going to be doing 8 knots, 9 knots, 10 knots. Ian Hanahan started sending us videos of him doing 12 knots and 12.9 knots. And,
wow.
what the hell?
It's not a cat, right? So, wow.
Yeah, so a lot of that is that because the foils are good and the way the whole rig is designed, that the boat is very, very responsive, and the boat is always trying to do the right thing. It's not a boat you've got to struggle with. It's not like the laser where if you start going fast downwind and stick the nose in a wave, you won't know which way it's going to go, whether it's going to go left, right, or straight through the wave, or whether it's going to dig the nose in and then back out. You just don't know what's going to happen. But with boats with very balanced hull shapes, so balance can mean a canoe bow and a canoe stern, or it can mean a scow bow, a very square blunt bow and a very square blunt stern, like the Goose and Oz Racer, or Puddle Duck, that the boat is balanced no matter what goes wrong. Despite the beautiful foil centerboard on my Beth sailing canoe, I was rushing to get the boat finished, and I just had glued up the rudder blank, and I hit it with a belt sander. So none of my normal professional shaping and all this wonderful stuff that I tell people is fantastic.
Right.
Because I wanted to get the boat on the water, and the result was that the rudder blade would stall at about 12 knots. Once the boat was doing about 12 knots, if the mizzen oversheeted a bit. And most boats, if the rudder stalls, you're in deep doo-doo. The boat's now deciding to do what it wants to do. Whereas with the canoe, with the balanced ends of the hull, it just wants to go straight. The rudder, it goes slushy, lose its grip.
Yes.
You would centralize it so it starts to get its grip back again and ease the mizzen a bit with your third spare arm, and the rudder would grip again, and you'd just be off blasting along at 12, 13 knots again.
Wow.
It was just trivial to try and control the boat. And that actually led into what I was doing with the Goat Island skiff, which was design number 2. And I wanted that same quality, even though the boat has a transom.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely wasn't going to have a very wide transom like some of the restricted class boats with high speed potential.
Mm-hmm.
I did a very careful job when designing the boat that as the boat heels, that it doesn't pitch down at the nose. Like if a lot of these modern very wide boats, if they heel, the stern jacks itself up in the air and the bow is depressed, right? And at some point, the bow can start steering the boat. Not so much now, because a lot of the wide stern boats have features to help balance the volumes, and that is that they have chines aft at an angle to the water plane, which cut off large slabs of the displacement in the back of the boat.
Right.
They have twin rudders, so that your rudder's not jacking up out of the water.
That's right.
And now we're starting to see that they've got scow bows.
Yeah.
You know, so the bows are being very much wider and have a lot more overhang at the front, like the current IMOCA boats that are sailing around the world.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting. We keep coming back to the same sort of valid points about seakeeping and handling, but achieved in different ways. But the parameters of it, the math of it, the ratio aspect of it, that doesn't change so much.
Right.
You know, so if you understand the ratios and understand how to control what happens to the volume as the boat heels, you can get the same effect in lots of different hull shapes.
I see. Well, I'm just glad to be buying plans and not having to think of doing that. So I really like that people like you do that, that thinking.
Yeah. Try to stop us, you know, like, I still wake up at night going, oh, what about this? What about that?
Really? That's amazing. This is great.
Yeah. So even after all these years, designing boats and thinking about boats.
It's a great obsession, right? So nothing wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So to move from, you know, like my boats, are all multi-purpose.
Yes.
But I designed them to be the boats that I would like to sail.
Right.
I know that they won't suit absolutely everyone. The Goat Island skiff might be a bit exciting for some sailors, and the Goose might be too ugly for others. And the Viola canoe,
probably the most one of the most popular, I would guess. Your Viola?
Viola, it's coming up there. It takes quite a few years for boat designs to get traction. You know, like I designed the Goat Island skiff in 93, 94, or maybe 94, 95. Doesn't really matter. But sometimes when I would borrow a boat from one of the builders, or the builder would report to me, people would come up to the owner or me and say, oh, that's a really nice boat. What sort of boat is it? But then about 2004, 2006, I went to the Moth World titles, which were the foiling moth titles as a spectator, and we sailed a Goat Island skiff around. And what happened was, in amongst all these people spectating the foiling moths, who were all gung-ho sailors themselves, some in multi-hulls, some in cool power boats, some in cruising yachts and other dinghies. If we'd go to one place and then someone would yell out, is that one of those Goat Island skiffs?
No.
And we'd say, yeah, it's a Goat Island skiff. And then we'd sail to another part of the race course to watch what the moths were doing around the jibe mark. And then someone would yell out, is that one of those Goat Island skiffs?
Really?
So we're talking 10 years to actually get that type of traction. You know, so Viola's not there yet. So to all would-be designers out there, keep cracking along, you know, don't give up. You know, that sort of the big mistake I made a couple of times was just slacking off.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking maybe it won't happen and I'll just let it be a hobby business or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep cracking along. Just keep doing it.
And the quick canoe is another one that I see a lot too.
Yeah, so basically the quick canoe and Goose and the quick canoe electric, which is designed specifically for electric trolling motors.
Okay.
That was also because of a visit to the USA.
Mm-hmm.
I saw how cheap the trolling motors were in the big box stores.
Mm-hmm. They are.
They're 3 or 4 times that price in Australia.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
The cost is trivial in the USA. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll fiddle with the quick canoe and turn it into a purpose-designed electric boat.
Mm.
One of my customers actually beat me to that. I can't remember his name now. But if you look at the quick canoe electric on my website,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see the story of what happened and how a customer basically built a prototype of the quick canoe electric and then fed back to me about how successful it was.
Mm.
So what had happened there was that most of my plans are around the $100 mark.
Right.
And I've never had a price rise, actually.
Everybody talks about inflation, but the plans have not.
Yeah, so what are we at? We're at 30 years now?
Well,
Yeah, I guess about 30 years. And the plans are still the same price.
mm-hmm.
But $100 is still a lot for some people.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought about people who were doing cheaper plans like Jim McCarlick.
Yeah,
and,
his are kind of ridiculously cheap, I think.
Well, they're ridiculously cheap. They require a bit more work from the builder
Mm-hmm.
in terms of working out the processes, but then that's helped by the general community that he's built, like
Right.
we all have,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where the support comes from.
Right.
And the Jim's plans are really well thought through. His boats are fantastic, and even to my eye, they sail well. They really sail well. Yeah.
I like their looks too. They have really good looks too.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of, it's, in a way, it's Bolger on steroids.
Yes.
Of course, I think that was his starting point.
Mm-hmm.
But he's developed quite a few things of his own as well.
Right.
Which I really like.
So your plans are more geared, I guess they're more details geared to the first timers?
Not necessarily the first time. It's the Goujon. It's like the Goujon book in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But the Goujon book, is it geared towards beginners? And absolutely not.
No. No.
People who've got a lot of boats can dig into that book and go, oh yeah, okay, that's great, and that's great, and that's great. Okay, this bit I know. Yeah, that's all familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, this bit. And that's what I think my plans should be like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So after having designed all the more expensive plans, I thought, okay, what about doing something where it's more of a spontaneous purchase? That people sort of see it and think, oh, that's so cheap, I'll buy the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And then that is the niche that the two quick canoes and the Oz Goose fit in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The detail in the plan is no less than my more expensive plans.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's just an attempt to get into the volume selling part of the market and see if that works out particularly well. And I don't think it works out particularly well, but it worked out equally worthwhile as the more expensive plan.
Right. Nice.
And the Goose gives a lot of notoriety. It's just such a stupid boat in first viewing. It looks really stupid, but then on using it, the people realize the huge stability
Yes.
and how the huge stability allows the sails to be relatively huge, and that the hull has no vices. So even when the boat is overpressed by too much sail, nothing stupid happens. It doesn't go out of control. That as long as you keep steering it, it'll go to where you're pointing the boat. Wherever you point the rudder,
yes,
it's going to go that way.
Wow.
Maybe more quickly or maybe more slowly than you expect if you're on the edge of control, but it'll just go that way. It's just no problem. So these are all aspects of boats that are really good for cruising.
Yes.
And I think anyone listening to this should think about this in terms of the types of boats that they're looking at, whether they're day sailing or doing a long weekend away, exploring some waterway, or doing a cruise up the intracoastal waterways, or with the Texas 200 people, doing 200 miles in 5 days, or whatever. The boat can be fast, but it's got to be a boat that will look after you, that won't have many vices, that will give you time and opportunity to reef or just sail over to the side and wait it out for a bit or whatever. Like these are all things that have to work for a cruising boat.
Right.
So, and then the other part of cruising, whatever the type of rig, is that it needs to be easy to handle.
Yes.
The rig should be as vice free as the hull design is.
Is that why you got into? I guess you've got the real, what's it called? Real simple sails, I guess, as a sailmaker. So you're trying to cater to the home builder, basically, right? So.
Yeah. The really simple sails came along later, but I don't mean that. I actually meant in a more pure way that if the rig and sails are designed properly,
right,
then they're going to make life easier for the sailor. I mean in terms of the boat design. But really simple sails kicked off because I came to the Philippines and met Edna, and we fell in love, and she had a background in the clothing trades.
Oh, let's see.
And I'd always wanted to do sailmaking.
Wow.
So we initially set up a grass roof hut in the outside the house here, which was just big enough to lay out a Goat Island skiff sail. And we started making sails for the Osgoose, the Goat Island skiff, and for the drop-in sailing rig, which is a mast and leeboard combination with a lug sail that you can drop into virtually any canoe to make it into a decent sailing boat. So we're doing those 3 sails and then sending them to Duckworks to sell for us.
Okay. Nice.
Export only.
Okay.
And using local people to make local things, doing it in the Philippines.
Yes.
And not to hit the bottom dollar with labor, but to give the workers time to make things nicely.
Do it properly. Right.
Do it really properly.
Right.
So I'll give you a little bit of Filipino vocabulary, and the word is maganda. So maganda means beautiful, and a whole lot of similar words depending on what expression you use it with. But so you can see a sunset and say it's maganda. You can see someone's new decor in their house and say it's maganda. You can have a nice meal and it's maganda. And the terms I explained it to Jinky, Hove, and Edna was, as a person who'd always bought sails myself, was that you go and pick up the sails, or the sails get delivered, and you're really excited. You finish building the boat, or you're thinking of the racing season ahead, and you pull out the sail and put it out in the grass, and you're looking at it for the first time. And I wanted everyone to have the word Magunda in their head.
Nice.
You know, so that's what I talked about with the team building the sails.
Right.
And we worked through several iterations of the design as we found out more and more. And one of the great things about building the sails here with the Filipino crew has been using the feedback from them. You know, that often there's a feeling in Western-run businesses here that the workers are just the workers, but workers really have to be the brains. So we get the feedback. We got the feedback and developed our designs for these 3 sails. And the idea was that we would be able to sell the plan and then sell the sail as well. So that basically doubles the income from doubles or maybe triples the income from compared to just selling the plan.
Right.
And it does good things.
Yeah.
It does good things here as well.
Yes.
And then from there, we eventually ended up using a contractor to laser cut the sails, which meant that we weren't restricted to the size of our workspace here. So we started spreading out to more and more sails. But the really different thing about what we do is that not many sail lofts have a small craft designer designing the sails. So there's a whole lot of things we can do that many other sail lofts cannot do. That very efficiently and quickly we can, if a customer wants to change his gaff rig to a balanced lug, we can just do that. We can do that. Send the drawings back within a few days, then get some feedback, see if it's okay to go ahead, and then go on to quote, and then see if they like the quote or not. So it means we've done gaff mainsails to replace Bermudan mainsails. It means we've done lug rigs to replace sloop rigs. It means we've done vertical batten sails that roll around the mast to increase the sail area of a boat that was using a triangular sail to do the same thing. We're able to do all sorts of interesting variations in existing designs.
Excellent.
Where we can, we pass them across the desk of the designer involved. Yeah, but often, looking at the age of many of us in this game, some of the designers are passing away.
Yes.
You know, they're just not so available anymore. So, yeah, which is really sad because they're the guys whose plans I was looking at back in Duck Flat, working out how to cut out all the timber. You know, it's sort of a really intimate relationship.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know these pretty intimately, which is amazing.
Yeah. You know, like you can read a novel and have a sense of what the novelist is like.
Yes.
You read several of a designer's boat plans and you start to see the sort of mind they have. You know, how detail-minded they are, how careful they are.
Right.
And how lateral thinking they are.
Nice.
And you see all of this, and it's quite exciting as a designer too.
That's great.
You know, to see all this. This
What are your future projects or designs that you're looking at?
So some things I would like to design would be a longer version of the Viola canoe.
Okay.
And also I dream of doing some cabin boats, but
Okay.
I'm not sure I'll have the chance to do that.
You do have some, I think you have a cabin boat, don't you? Like a canal boat, something like that?
Oh yeah, I have a couple of motor launches and
Yes.
a 40 foot boat.
But
There's a 23, 27, which are basically the same design. The 23 has a chopped off stern, and the 27 came later, and I just put the stern back on. And then the 40 footer, but I sell so few of those. Like of the 40 footer, I sell maybe 2 plans every 5 years, and with the 27 footer and 23 footer, which is sold as the one plan now. You know, you get the plan, you've got the details of the 2 boats. But all these boats just take high thrust outboards, just take outboards.
But you're thinking you'd like to design a small cabin sailboat. That's what you're thinking.
Yeah, some cabin sailboats. Couples and families. Because the thing is, back in the 70s and to a lesser extent in the 80s, there were lots of family-oriented production boats.
Right. Yes.
But I think the family-oriented production boats have now kind of disappeared. I don't know about your perception, but I think they've totally disappeared in Australia.
There's no builders of small family boats anymore. That doesn't exist. So that's
yeah. So some of the O'Day boats.
Yeah.
There are lots of boats in the sort of 18, 20, 22, yes. 24 foot range. And they've been priced out. You know,
I think it's economically not feasible, I think, anymore. That's what it seems to be.
Yeah, so I think an 18-foot production cabin sailing boat would probably be up around $35,000 or $40,000 now.
That's right. You can't compete with what's on the used market with that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So buy a used boat, or if you want to build something that's extraordinary, that really suits your purpose, then build a boat.
Yes, exactly.
From whichever designer. So it's sort of always interesting going back through it, because each time I think about it, somewhat different things come up. There will often be a lot of similarity, because the thought processes and the philosophy are all unchanging. And I've built a career on those in a fairly inflexible way.
Okay.
So the story tends to be somewhat similar, but it's always a little bit different as well.
Anything else you would like to tell our nano cruising community? How do you see the future of small boats evolving? You have a vision for that?
Yeah, I think nano cruising is actually an extremely cool thing. I think that Phil Bolger was right with his line about there are 2 types of good boats. There are those that you live aboard and those you stick on your car roof to take home.
That's right.
Which, and of course, Bolger had designed every type of imaginable boat with his 700, 800 different designs.
Lots of designs, absolutely. Everything. He's got everything. Absolutely.
Yeah, from the box boats to absolutely classically beautiful boats. But within the framework of seeing how people use their boats, minimalism has a lot to go for it. Less materials, less effort at every point, from the building to the transporting to the rigging. And also the adventures are much bigger.
That's right.
On smaller water.
And more varied too, right? So it allows you
absolutely. Like you can cross oceans in something bigger, or sometimes something smaller. And it's all pretty similar. It's the landfalls that people will remember, and it's that moment, like when I was a kid on the catamaran.
That's right.
being taken out sailing for the first time. It's when you look out the heads and see that there's something out there. There's all this potential.
Mm-hmm.
And small boats are just a fantastic way to do it.
Absolutely.
From the paradoxes through the Wellsfords, through to the Uhtred boats, through to the Michaleks, and so many more. And it's really great that we've got an ecosystem where we can choose something to fit what we like. And that's kind of the fun part of being a designer too. To your own self, be true, design what you like, and that way it'll be different enough from what everyone else designs to find a spot in the marketplace and to find a following.
Yeah, absolutely. And you found your niche, and it's fantastic. It's great. Great boat.
Yeah, me and my niche, we found each other.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. Thank you so much for your time. It's been fantastic hearing about all this. So.
Yeah, very welcome. Thank you. And to everyone in the boating community, keep listening to each other, keep sharing your stories, try and work out what's true or not. And also, even if it's not true, Moby Dick was a great story.
Lots of great info. So for our next episode, we'll be talking to Eric Zilbert. Eric is the Commodore of the Potter Yachters, which was established in 1970. It's one of the oldest trailer sailor club probably in North America. So until then, stay up to date by joining our Facebook group. Also subscribe to our mailing list at nanocruising.com. And last but not least, seize your own adventure.